my generation, is the first generation of gay people because of history who have the ability to bring this elder role into being.
As an elder, you would want to have a vision, because without vision, the people perish. And so
the rates for gay suicide among young people are still as high as they've ever been.
You know, our culture doesn't provide much eldering.
A culture that's just based on physical attributes and sex is really a shallow place.
I settled for sex when what I was really looking from you was someone to talk to and direction.
And there would have been elders in the community to help me make some relevance and sense out of that experience. And there weren't.
So there are all these different stereotypes that hit you in the face.
It's very difficult to talk about matters of spirit and soul because they're elusive.
To me, story is everything because by talking about your process, you're making intimacy.
Tom was one of my literary elders. It was about connection to another's heart.
What makes one person an elder and another person maybe just older?
I was introduced to Whitman, and I never had any idea that Whitman was a gay man. Textbooks don't talk about that. And you have to find that out on your own. Here's who we are, folks. You know, we are Da Vinci. You know, we are Whitman. You know, we are Rimbaud. We are Baldwin.
lesbian is the most powerful word in the English language. It's a woman without a man in her life, an independent, takes care of herself. Lesbians really respect the older lesbian.
They knew that closets were just not where our future was. They had a sense of purpose. They were dedicated to a vision, to that vision. They had a sense of outrage.
I don't know how I got through that fucking high school, which was Auschwitz as far as I'm concerned.
A common misconception that the youth just want to party. That's not my experience. That's not my reality. I want to connect with spirit in this lifetime.
What I love about the fairy community is that it's more of a spiritual thing. It's something that informs our existence. And there is also the grounding in the two-spirit tradition.
I announced to my community that I was really desiring a manhood ritual. Once you step into manhood, you take on the responsibility of giving to your tribe. With certain elders in my community, it was also really empowering for them to be able to step into their magic and step into their role as elders and as brothers.
Say, okay, we've got legal rights in 38 states now, and maybe that's enough and we can rest. That isn't enough. That's just the surface.
The bones of our ancestors are right here, and that's why we always have that saying, walk softly on the earth mother. You are stepping on the bones of your ancestors.
A lot of people have no idea what we're talking about when we say gay elder.
This younger generation is already accustomed to more diversity. We were raised with feminism. We have a different social awareness than a lot of our elders did. So it's just sometimes hard to communicate.
Because it doesn't make any sense to them, I think.
I respect the history and all the trailblazing and all the getting our rights, but basically I don't like the inherited culture like Judy Garland and all that crap.
Well, gay elder sounds like a lot of older gay guys wanting to get sexy with young guys.
The older gay men have money and the younger ones don't, and it's like, well, what can I get? As opposed to just nurturing a relationship to nurture it.
One of the ways of presenting that is for us to talk about our own experiences of having been mentored or having failed to have been mentored, and the aches and holes and so on that left,
It's difficult to trust friendship because you think, what's in it? Do they want to have you sexually as opposed to just being your friend?
This is where I am on my journey right now. And if you want to sit at my feet and I can sit at your feet and we can learn together.
They offered us a sense of purpose, and I think a lot of people who said that they were lost today said they came here because they had no sense of purpose. And they want to give us that. And we need it. I need it. I need it.
It's so important not to get inflated with this notion of how wise we are.
Where we're stuck in junior high wood. So much of our mentality is so childlike and based upon childish concepts. We need to just grow up.
I have survived. There's no superiority in it. It's luck. So you can share the luck.
We're doing the same thing that they were doing, but in a different light, on a different level.
Eldering is something that older people do to adults and youth.
Getting to that point where we're all together and making a movement. There are more battles to be fought.
Right.
That not everything has been achieved,
Right.
and that the younger generation is still fighting those battles. Yeah.
Older gay men end up moving to Palm Springs and have no role for themselves. If we were living among the Maasai in East Africa, every 7 years, the entire Maasai nation comes together and initiates, every 7 years, a new cycle of tribal elders.
We were seeing that young men in their 20s and early 30s were really having difficulty moving into more adult roles in the community.
One way of thinking about how an elder might be is looking at the people who eldered us, especially gay elders. What qualities about them influenced our lives?
I was out, but it was 1972, you know, and I hadn't met any really what I would call positive role models. And it was like out of a corny movie or something. I mean, he saw me through the crowds, you know, there's this little kid, you know, local kid. And I saw him, and I was kind of shy, and I must have looked away like, oh, he's looking at me. And he, all of a sudden, strode through the lobby, and it's like the crowd parted. It was like, you know, the Red Sea or something. People just got out of the way, and he came right up to me. And he looked me right in the eyes with this piercing look of acceptance and love. And he said, "Don't worry. Everything will be all right." And then he bent down and he kissed me on the cheek. This was a blessing, a benediction. It was like a spiritual transmission between an older gay man and a younger gay man. And from that moment, somewhere I knew it was going to be all right.
So he had a tremendous magnetism, and he had a lot of young men around him that looked to him for wisdom and guidance and nurturing. And one of the things that he did that I just love, that I think every gay elder should do, is cook for their. Because it's wonderful to be fed by an older man, especially when you're young and hungry in more ways than one. He failed as a gay elder in the sense that he committed suicide. The reason that he committed suicide is he couldn't stand growing old. And that was a gift too, I guess, because I learned that I don't want to take that path, that's for sure. I want to grow into more meaning and value as I grow older.
The tragic suicide of James Neil Hurley is a really good example of why we're all here today, why the initiation as a gay tribal elder is so important.
And I've looked for my models really in cultures other than our own, you know, indigenous cultures, Native American communities, where elders are revered, you know, as were gay people.
When I was growing up, there was no what we refer to as two-spirit elders for me to talk to. I'm happy that my generation of people have paved a way for the tradition to resurface, but also be reinterpreted for something that's relevant for them today. The old-time Indians viewed that as an excellent conduit for spirit, that spirit moved with these people a lot better. And I think in the old time, they were probably regarded as a third gender. And they were regarded as true medicine people. When I look at that picture, there's the Tenawipe, and they gave her a beautiful buckskin dress to wear for that occasion to honor her. Now there's all these other men dancing around her. The question I have is, well, what does that make those men? Because this person was a spiritual being, honored as a spiritual being, a powerful spiritual being, an intermediary with spirit for the tribe. So it was a great honor to be connected with this person, you see. Until what happened? The missionaries came out, and all that they could see were these men dressing like women and these women dressing like men, and they didn't understand the cultural context that these individuals existed in the tribal societies that they were living in. That was one of the first traditions that went underground.
What is it that you seek? I seek initiation as a gay tribal elder. Alfredo, may you always be a bridge of understanding between languages, between cultures, between generations.
I'm glad that I do this because I'm reclaiming that from my ancestors.
Alfredo, I bless the work that you do with young gay men, especially in the area of education of HIV and AIDS, for the awareness and the insights that you bring and share with others in that arena.
My ancestors live up in the Andes Mountains. It not only happens in Peru, happens in all indigenous cultures.
And open the hearts of those you come in contact with as you have ignited and opened the hearts of us.
Now what do I do with this? My moral obligation is to reclaim it and pass it.
In his traditional village, they refer to them as gatekeepers. I said, gatekeepers, what do you mean by that? He said, well, the gatekeepers are important is because they are the people who keep harmony between this world, the visible world, and the invisible world, the world of ancestors and spirits. They also keep balance and harmony between people in the village, and they keep balance and harmony between the people and nature. And so maybe about 5-6 years ago, we initiated our first gay tribal elder workshop. And facilitated, and we've done many since then and gotten clearer and sharper around these issues. And thank God, one of the things that's happened over the years, more and more and more older gay men hear this issue. So what we're doing is a radical way of moving forward, and that's simply by getting back to the roots of things, where we came from.
That Indian, he knows wisdom. In time, it's gonna ring your bell.
Do I love you more than a look? Do I love you more than a word? Do I love you more than a room? Do I love you more than a day? Do I love you more than the air? Air used to seem just nothingness. Through our love, it seems no less than God's air airing your life's breath.
Sociobiologists and anthropologists who have investigated this question for the last 100 years are almost unanimous that gay and lesbian people carry the altruistic impulse in our species, that we carry something around the betterment and furtherance and support of other people that allows our species to keep evolving.
I think of Allen Ginsberg, for example, this kind of wild man, outsider energy, raving against the insanity of our culture and injustice and hypocrisies, but with a tremendous kind of ecstasy, throughout it.
I was one of the first freedom riders in 1961, was very active for a decade in just endless ways, many arrests.
I've heard some people refer to this as consciousness scouts, that were out there kind of on the edges of consciousness.
And this, of course, does tie in with gays sensitive to the needs of others. There was never a community in history that did more than gay people for people with AIDS.
There was an awful lot of dying in a fast and short time, and there was a lot of hurt.
I remember my beloved. My heart's a graveyard of my loves. Still I recall their flowered graves, the refuse dams, the arteries flood, with gravestones, birth dates, death dates, years of prescriptions, crutches, prayers, tears.
The awakening of gay people is one of the greatest stories of all times. That's my portrait of the founder of the modern gay liberation movement, Mr. Harry Hay. He founded the Mattachine Society here in Los Angeles, which was the first ongoing political group of gays in the history of the United States back in 1950. So these were very brave men who started the movement here in Los Angeles. One day, he got a call from Dankl Hefner, who had been reading some of Harry's writings. And it was from that meeting that they decided to do the first gathering of radical fairies, which was a seminal event in the history of gay male consciousness. It was as significant to our spiritual evolution as the Stonewall Revolution had been to our civil rights part of our lives a decade before. Soon there were calls being issued for regional gatherings in every corner of the United States and in Canada. And eventually about 80 acres of beautiful rolling farmland was purchased as sort of a fairy sanctuary.
Our elders have so many rich stories that I haven't even heard. And last night at the fire, you know, people were speaking about the gay liberation movement, and I think about the legacy of, you know, Harry Hay and all those who gave so much of their life to the gay liberation movement. They were all pushing the envelope and created a space for me to be who I am today.
To see this concept of elder, and a very, very, very strong concept of elder, where, you know, if someone's been around and they've done good work and everyone knows they've done good work, when they say something about what's going on or maybe what we want to think about, people sit and listen. I remember being in gatherings at Wolf Creek in the 80s and 90s where you would look around the circle and a very sizable portion of people would not be there who had been there the year before.
It's bad. It's bad, you know.
Many of these young people are desperately needing to be blessed, desperately needing to be acknowledged, desperately needing support.
On the boulevard, I had already been raped, robbed at gunpoint, and, you know, turning tricks all day long. And then I ran into Stephen, and he was working at the Van Ness Outreach program, and, you know, they did intakes and stuff and asked, you know, when's the last time you used, what do you use? And he was somebody that I could look up to that was open about himself enough for me to have a guiding point.
You just ache for somebody like that, you know?
When I hear the word elder, I get a negative connotation to it in and of itself. I was actually raised until I was about 8 in a Mormon church. And I remember, you know, the people being called elders, and in my opinion, they were all assholes, and they were extremely judgmental and shady. And they actually, when I was 18, they sent me a letter that they were excommunicating me as a member of the church because of my homosexual lifestyle.
My inclination was just to wrap him up in my arms and, you know, hold him, you know, somehow make it better.
But I think that the person behind the title, elder, you know, is more than that. And you can call it what you want. To me, somebody that was there, that knew how to talk to somebody, that cared how to talk to somebody, to let somebody know that they were worth something, to show there's better if you choose to take it. Here's how you get it. You know, I'm 23 years old, and I'll have 2 years sober in 21 days. You know, you don't see that every day. And I was somebody who happened to benefit from services that he offered to a younger generation. And I think that's amazing.
We want to be assimilated, and then we will be accepted. Well, that's what the Jews in Germany thought too. That if they were assimilated, they were safe. The Stonewall riots were by those who couldn't hide. And for me, assimilation equals the closet. If we aren't vigilant now and true to our community, we will be under attack. And then one more time, the ones that are left behind, the drag queens, the transgender, the sissy boys, the dykes, they're going to have to do Stonewall all over again.
Whenever someone has pain, whenever someone is in need, we all gather around. Let's keep this ball rolling. Let's move it forward. Let's all do our share, and let's all care about each other.
We belong to the people who need us most. That displaces the question of what should I do with my life, and inserts for whom should I do it.
And I'm tired of hiding. And I know that I don't have a choice but to walk in the truth of who I am. So I give thanks to you. And when I saw my sisters here with me, I just know I'm right where I need to be. And we're all right where we need to be right now. And so I give thanks for this moment.
Right on.